I'm Amanda from Amanda Nicole Fine Art, and today I decided to show you guys the do's and don'ts of drawing realistic eyes. So get out your paper and pencil and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is split my paper in half and label one side don't and the other side do so that you can tell which side is which. You'll also notice that throughout this entire process, I'm only using a mechanical pencil because I believe that you can do art on a budget and you don't need the fancy materials to succeed and create awesome things. Starting on the don't side, with the shape of the eye, people sometimes will make a perfect almond or oval shape with points on either side, like this. Now, that's not exactly how you want it to be. Instead, you can start with some construction lines so that everything's even. And then you need to remember that eyes have tear ducts. And so there's going to be a little curve at the end, and it's not going to be a perfect oval. Eyes are not symmetrical, nor should you always draw them like they are. Moving on to the iris, people will sometimes make a perfect circle in the center of the eyeball. Now, while sometimes that is true, it's not always realistic looking. So you should first of all put in your details for the tear ducts, and also remember to draw in a waterline, which is a little bit at the bottom of the eyeball. Always look at your reference photos for an idea of how this should look. Now you can move on to the iris. Make sure that you draw the circle as symmetrical as possible because irises are round and is going to be cut off a little bit at the top. Now I know this isn't always true with reference photos, but this is just giving you an idea of how to draw an eye. A common mistake that some people will make is that they don't put enough shading or detail into the iris. Sure, they'll put a pupil dead in the center, color it completely black, put some blocky highlights, and then they'll put some details in around the iris, but it kind of looks off. The way I draw my iris is I start with my highlights so that I know where they are and I don't feel like I need to put them around the pupil. Then I'll sketch in where the pupil's going to be, and I will shade it in completely black because pupils are completely black. The thing I do though to add contrast is I will completely shade in the top of the iris because that's where the harshest shadow is because of the eyelid. So I will completely shade that in just as dark as the pupil. You'll also notice when you look at your reference photo or even on your own eyes in the mirror, you'll see that there's always a darker outline around the iris. So make sure you add that in and add some shading. Then I will start putting in my details for the iris inner, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a scientist. But if you look at your reference photos, you'll see these little lines that create up the eyeball, and you'll want to add those in. So I'll do some going from the outer edge and some from the pupil. You have to remember that eyes are literally domes, so you want to make sure there's highlights and dark shadows. So that's what I'm adding in right now, is I'm adding in some shadows to blend everything together. Like I said before, you have an eyelid, and so there's going to be a shadow towards the top of the eyeball. So that's what I'm adding in now. I'm adding in a harsh line, but then I'm blending it out so there can be a shadow on the actual whites of the eyelids. When you're drawing an eye, there's not going to be a perfectly white eyeball. There's always shading with graphite, and then once you move on to color, like color pencil or markers, you're going to have some undertones. It's not a perfectly white eyeball most of the time. I'm also doing it at the bottom above the waterline to add that shadow that would be cast off of the waterline, just like the eyelid. You can start to see that we're getting some depth and it's starting to look three-dimensional. It can be hard to lose all of your white highlights, so I'm going in with the eraser right now to make sure I don't lose them. Don't forget to also shade in your tear duct. Now I'm just shading in to define the waterline. This isn't going to be shaded as dark because they are usually lighter. Now moving on to the crease. Don't just make a straight line like this. There is no crease that's going to look just that simple. What I like to do is I kind of shape the eye and I imagine that there is skin kind of creasing over, you know how a crease actually is. And right now I'm not using a reference photo. I'm creating this completely from my head. But if you have a reference photo, you can kind of use that to kind of see where it is in the photo. I also make sure I shade and blend. Now, I don't have a blender on me right now, so I'm using my finger, which is totally fine. And I'm also cleaning up some areas that I smudged. I'm also adding some shadows underneath the eye because there are like bones and shadows on her face, and so you need to make sure that you add those in. Again, I'm blending with my finger. Now, eyelashes. These can be very difficult for people to learn, and you don't want to do just straight up and down lines like this. I like to start from the corner of the eye, and I do little strokes. And eyelashes, no matter whether you're a guy or a girl, they're always going to be a little curled. So I'll work as if there is a hair coming from the innards of the tight line, which is the line above your eye, and it's kind of curling outwards. And I'll do these in short little strokes so that they feel more natural. And I'm not going to be very tight with them because they're not going to be perfect. There's going to be some hair sticking different ways. And as you get towards the tear duct, they're going to become more sparse. They're not going to be as clustered, and they're going to be a little lighter. And with the bottom eyelashes, again, start with the crease. Now your bottom lashes are always going to be shorter, and they're always a little straighter, and they're definitely a lot more spread apart. So keep those things in mind. I would say that pupils, irises, and eyelashes are definitely the hardest parts about learning how to draw eyes. I'm just adding in some extra detail underneath the eye. Now the eyebrow. You will know that you obviously have to do hairlines, but you don't want them to be in a weird straight line and kind of long. I like to kind of sketch out the bottom line of the eyebrow like this, just so that I know if it looks good before I jump right into it. The beginning hairs always kind of go upwards and they start to go sideways the further you go. Kind of like the eyelashes, I do short strokes to give the impression of hair. And I kind of just form the shape of the eyebrow I desire. Make sure that there is some type of arch. Whether they're completely groomed eyebrows or not, there's going to be some type of form and shape. And that is just about it. You can kind of see the comparison now of the do's and the don'ts. You can see that shading and details are definitely going to be the main factors that are going to get you from the don't side to the do side. That sounds weird, but hopefully you know what I mean. Be sure to always practice because that really does help. Hopefully those tips helped you guys, and just remember it always takes practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's the only way you're going to get better. I know it took me like 2 years to understand how to draw eyes. So feel free to watch the video again so you get a better understanding of what to do, and always have fun. Besides, everyone has their own artistic style, so maybe yours isn't realistic, and that's totally fine. I just decided to show you guys how to draw realistic eyes better, and I hope you enjoyed. So, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!